If you start living by false principles, eventually you're going to slap up against reality and it's going to hurt.
This very clip you're about to watch is one that I wanted to share for a long time now. It is basically part of a bigger presentation. It's also a book, by the way, called I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, hosted by Frank Turek from Cross-Examined. It is about, does truth exist? This is the first point of the presentation, and it is part of this video right here, the clip. The second point would be, does God exist? The third point would be, are miracles possible? And the fourth and final point is the New Testament true? Is the New Testament reliable? And yeah, big questions, big claims, and I love that Frank Turek starts his presentation with, does truth exist? Because it is just the foundation of everything. You know, if you disagree with that truth, ultimate truth exists, you know, you can always walk away and say, I don't care, I have my own truth. But this very clip will show you why this doesn't work, and it's not an opinion, it's not based on an opinion, it's just logical thinking, and it is really important, really cool. I will give my thoughts on the implications of all of that at the back end of the video, so without further ado, let's jump right in.
Well, there's a lot of people that can't handle the truth. They're saying, you got your truth, I got my truth, all truth is relative. Well, if you don't get anything outside of what we talk about here tonight, this is going to be the most important thinking skill we're going to talk about. Whether you're a Christian, an atheist, or anywhere in between, this is going to be helpful. This thinking skill is so powerful that half of what you need to know to discover what really is true, you'll know after you learn this thinking skill. And it's easy. But I was a dimwit. I was 33 years old. I already had a master's degree, and I didn't even know what I'm about to show you right now. And it's so simple. And the easiest way of showing you this thinking skill is to demonstrate using it. Suppose someone were to come up to you and say, there is no truth. Postmodern claim. What would you say to somebody who said that? Yeah, is that true? Is it true that there's no truth? Because if it's true that there's no truth, the claim there is no truth can't be true, but it claims to be true. Did I say that right? Can everybody see that this is a self-defeating statement? A self-defeating statement doesn't meet its own standard. A self-defeating statement violates the law of non-contradiction. A self-defeating statement is like saying, I can't speak a word in English. If I were to say that, what would you say? Man, you just use English to say it. You're doing exactly what you say can't be done. It can't be true. Now here's the thinking skill. What you want to do when somebody says something like this is you want to turn the claim on itself. Turn the claim on itself. So if somebody says there is no truth, you turn that claim on itself and you say, is that true, right? Now, let's do a few more of these because there are many in our culture. Suppose someone says all truth is relative. They may say it that way rather than there's no truth. If someone were to say this to you, if you turn the claim on itself, what would you say back? Yes, is that a relative truth? No, this is an absolute truth claim, claiming that all truths are relative. That's obviously self-defeating. It's like saying I can't speak a word in English, or it's like saying my parents had no kids that lived, right? Or my brother is an only child. These are self-defeating statements. And once you get good at recognizing these, it's going to save you a lot of pain and suffering. Why? Because this process of turning a claim on itself will help you discover what is false, and half the battle is trying to avoid what is false. If you start living by false principles, eventually you're going to slap up against reality and it's going to hurt. You want to spend your time looking at truth. How about this? Sometimes it's not said there is no truth or all truth is relative. It's probably said in our culture more often than not this way. There isn't the truth, there's only my truth. You've probably heard that, or something like it. I get to live my truth, right? If someone were to say this to you and you were to turn the claim on itself, what would you say back? You say, is that just your truth or is it the truth? Because if this is just your truth up here, then it's just your opinion. So why should I believe it? But if it's the truth, then it can't be true because you're saying there is no the truth. It's self-defeat. You know what the truth of the matter is? I know this might be upsetting to some, but there's no such thing as your truth. There's just the truth. I know nobody likes to hear that, but that's just the way things are. Sorry. There's not your math, there's just the math. Right? There's not your logic, there's just the logic. Now, sometimes it isn't said this way either. Sometimes it's said this way. Well, it's true for you, but not for me. This is my favorite one, actually. If somebody says it's true for you, but not for me, what would you say back to them? If you turn the claim on itself, what would you say back? Yeah, there you go. You'd say, is that true for everybody? It's true for you, but not for me. True for everybody, because if true for you, but not for me, is true for everybody, then true for you, but not for me can't be true, because it's true for everybody. Did I say that right? I know that can give you intellectual constipation if you think about it long enough. But that's because it's self-defeating. It's like saying I can't speak a word in English. Actually, there's a more fun way of dealing with this. If somebody says it's true for you, but not for me, say, sure, go try that with your bank teller. Yeah, go to your bank teller and say, I'd like $100,000 out of my account. The bank teller looks at your account and says, I'm sorry, I only have $6.04 in your account. It's easy to get the money. You simply say, that's true for you, but not for me. Give me the $100,000. Are you going to get the money? No, if it's true there was only $6.04 in your account, that's true for all people at all times in all places when referring to your account at that time. It's just true. And I'm surprised, but a lot of Christians don't seem to get this. I go to a lot of churches. I ask them, do you think Christianity is true? And they say, why? And then I ask them why, and they say, because I have faith. Is that a good answer? Does your faith make something true? Does your faith change whether or not God exists or Jesus rose from the dead? Do you have to believe something to make it true? You have to believe in gravity to stay on the ground. Do people who don't believe in gravity float away? Hey, look, there's another one. Hey, if you believe, you'll come back. No, that's not the way it works. You say, well, why is the Bible always talking about faith then? Because there's two kinds of faith. There's belief that, and then there's belief in. Belief that is getting evidence that God exists, that Jesus rose from the dead. We call this apologetics, giving evidence for what you believe. It's not apologizing. You're trying to give evidence for what you believe. But all the belief that in the world won't get your moral transgressions forgiven. For that, you got to go from belief that to belief in. Look, we know this distinction in relationships, don't we? There's a difference between belief that and belief in. When I first met my wife 36 years ago, I got evidence that she would be a good wife. But all the evidence in the world didn't make her my wife. I had to take a step of trust in her to ask her to be my wife. And in a momentary lapse of judgment, she said yes. That's the difference between belief that and belief in. Really, the word we ought to use is trust. Trust in. That's really what the Bible's talking about when it talks about faith. Most of the time, it's talking about the second kind. Trust in. After you know that it's true, trust in it. The real definition is trusting in what you have good reason to believe is true. That's the definition of faith. Trusting in what you have good reason to believe is true. How about this? You've probably heard this claim. There's no truth in anything but science. If you turn the claim on itself, what would you say back to somebody who said that? Is that a scientific truth? Can you go in the laboratory and prove that? No, that's a philosophical claim. You can't prove that in the laboratory. That's philosophy, and you can't do science without philosophy. It's built on philosophy. In fact, everything's built on philosophy. Reading the Bible is built on philosophy. Everything's built. Chemistry is built on physics is built on philosophy. In fact, there's in the book back there, Stealing from God, there's a chapter on science. Here's the title of the chapter. Science doesn't say anything. Scientists do.
So the really important question, at least to me, would be, what are the implications of that? So ultimate truth exists. What does it mean? So basically you have three options. The first option would be the truth about reality, about the meaning of life, about why there is something rather than nothing. We just don't know it yet. Or we just don't know it. That would be the first point. The second point could be we don't know it yet. We will know it in the future. And the third point, and this is the point where I think that is true, that reflects also my worldview for many reasons, is that we already have the truth and it can only be one worldview. Because all the worldviews fundamentally contradict each other. So they cannot be simultaneously true. You know, naturalism, materialism, atheism, whatever you want to call it, contradicts fundamentally monotheism or polytheism. And all those worldviews, they want to make a truth claim about reality, what the foundation of reality really is. And the only question that remains at the end is, which one is true? And I really hope, if you watch the entire presentation, I linked here in the description, I don't have enough faith to be an atheist, I really hope it can convince you, or at least make you think about a lot of important things, because it is so important to reflect on what our philosophy, our worldview is, because it really guides every decision we make. And I really hope and pray that it will guide you in the right direction of Jesus Christ. So thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.